Make sure to subscribe to the podcast. The 415ers coming at you 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday on the Odyssey Sports Podcast Network. You can follow us on social media, Twitter, Instagram. I'm on social at eGiddings10. Marc is on social at Marc Grandy, Marc with a C, Grandy with an I. That takes us to our next point, Marc, because the 49ers do have a lot to, I think, be happy about moving into the second half, sort of unofficially, of course, this season, like what the biggest challenge will be. And to me, a lot of these challenges are going to be ones that at least I'm looking forward to. I don't see them more so as a negative sort of maybe hurdle or obstacle that's standing in their way. But I'll throw it to you first and then kind of bounce off of that. But to me, the challenges that the Niners have are good things to worry about. Whereas other teams, maybe you're kind of looking at themselves, reevaluating after the trade deadline and saying, maybe we should have gone and gotten that guy, or maybe we should have upgraded here, or maybe we're gonna have to figure out how to patch up these holes. To me, the Niners don't have as many of those issues. So I'm curious, what do you think the biggest challenge will be for the 49ers the rest of the way?
I'm not sure if this is exactly what you were going for when you posed the question to me. I spent a lot of time thinking about this, what I wanted to go with. I'm kind of in the same vein as you. It's a challenge, but it's a good challenge. And I'm going to say it's trying your best to spread out touches on offense because there's so many guys and so many mouths to feed for the 49ers. I thought what we saw Kyle Shanahan do against the Rams without Debo Samuel active, but with Christian McCaffrey and Jeff Wilson Jr. before the Niners traded him to the Dolphins, considering Jeff Wilson Jr.'s ability to catch passes, that's not something that Elijah Mitchell does all that well, but certainly Debo Samuel does. I mean, he's a wide receiver first and foremost, but also can be used as a ball carrier. I think what Kyle Shanahan does in terms of mixing up the running backs that he uses, and you can also throw Debo Samuel into that group, with McCaffrey, with Elijah Mitchell, and with Debo Samuel, how is he splitting up carries out of the backfield? How is he splitting up touches for those guys in general? Because they're obviously all effective. Debo Samuel and Christian McCaffrey in general are more similar to each other. Elijah Mitchell, as you mentioned, is more the generic running back between the tackles. He can break some tackles, run over some guys, and give you an extra 2 or 3 yards on every carry. But the way that the Niners used Jeff Wilson Jr. and Christian McCaffrey against the Rams, and the way that I imagine they will use Debo Samuel and Christian McCaffrey going forward, is because they're both threats out of the backfield to make catches. So I'm really curious to see how Elijah Mitchell factors in. And then you also throw in George Kittle and Brandon Ayuk. I think a challenge for Kyle Shanahan, one is making sure that no one feels left out on the offense. And I'm not sure, I'm not saying that there's going to be any sort of, chemistry issue or anything. That's cannot be further from what I'm saying. I'm just saying Kyle Shanahan has so many weapons on offense. I think a real challenge is going to be, make sure everyone gets at least 5, 6, 7 touches a game, because that's more difficult than it sounds when you have this many guys out there that are capable of turning in gigantic games and are capable of putting the team on their back at times. So I think a challenge for the 49ers is offensively. It's a good challenge and a good problem to have, but it's making sure that everyone gets the touches that they deserve, because you just have so many mouths to feed.
No, and that's exactly where I'm at. And that's where I was kind of going with this question is, like, you have almost too many options at this point, because before Christian McCaffrey got to the 49ers, there were, excluding quarterbacks, 6 guys on the roster with double-digit touches.
Hmm.
Now, right now, the 49ers have spread out over the course of 8 games, just to do some math and give you an idea of what the challenge is going to be and what Kyle Shanahan, I'm sure, and his staff is looking at. 372 touches for the entire team this season. That comes out to about 47 touches through 8 games per game. That means now you have 6 guys that are already on the roster. That's one of the reasons they got rid of Jeff Wilson Jr., not only to help him and put him in a position to succeed, do better for his career, but I think also to eliminate a potential option on offense. I mean, right now you add Christian McCaffrey. You're right. You got Elijah Mitchell coming back. You got Kyle Juszczyk coming back. You got Debo Samuel coming back. I think in a way, the Rams game was a perfect introduction for Christian McCaffrey specifically because there wasn't that many other mouths to feed. Whereas now, each game moving forward, it's going to be touched by committee. And I know a lot of people are going to maybe sort of look at Kyle Shanahan, and there's going to be games the rest of this way where maybe Debo gets the ball 2 times. I mean, maybe Brandon Ayuk, who has led the receiving core in receptions, yards, touchdowns, maybe he gets 2 targets a game. Maybe Christian McCaffrey in some games gets only 10 or 15 touches or 10 or 15 looks at touches. George Kittle could be absent. There are going to be games where these guys simply do not get the ball because if you're looking at about 47 touches per game, you're going to spread that between 7 guys. And Christian McCaffrey right now is number one of the pecking order. But to me, that could change on a game by game basis depending on who has the hot hand, depending on how Kyle Shanahan wants to script the first 24 plays, depending on how defenses react to those first 24 plays. So right now, the 49ers offensively are in a position where they have a lot of mouths that need to get fed. But to me, the biggest challenge is going to be keeping those guys happy and also healthy, which is a big part too. I know we talked about before that kind of being a cop out with, our first segment that we discussed all the guys going down and coming back and the impact they're going to have. But I just feel like, to me, the largest hurdle that they have to jump down the stretch is going to be finding a way to make sure that everyone gets enough of the football because you also have a quarterback that is less capable than others in that department in delivering the football outside of just handing it off. So Kyle Shanahan, this is where we're going to see him earn his money as a play caller, as the quote unquote boy genius and offensive wonder on that side of the ball. This is where we're going to see him get those big bucks.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think I can, you kind of got me thinking. I'm looking forward maybe to, a tough game for the 49ers ahead. For example, week 13, Miami at home. They have a high powered offense. Say the Niners drop that game and maybe the offense isn't quite as explosive as it needed to be to win that game. Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill, rain hell down on the Niners secondary, which they've done to anyone they've played so far this year. Let's just run out that example and say that happens. The Niners can't score enough points, and you look at the box score after the fact, and Debo Samuel had 4 touches, gained what? I don't know, 27 total yards. Let's just say that happens. It very well can because of, as you just mentioned, all of the mouths the Niners have to feed. I mean, Debo gets 4 touches, okay? Maybe 1 carry and 3 catches, whatever the number is, whatever the split is. George Kittle got 6 catches. Christian McCaffrey had 14 touches, 10 carries, 4 catches, whatever the number is. And the Niners lose that game. I can already hear all of the Niner fans on Twitter, everyone calling in to talk shows around the Bay Area saying, what the hell is Kyle Shanahan doing not giving the ball to Debo Samuel more? Like, you can already see that happening. And fair or not, it's going to happen because the Niners, they're not going to go undefeated the rest of the way. Spoiler, they're going to slip up here or there. I would venture to guess. I'd be willing to bet that. It's a pretty safe bet. But whenever that trip up does happen, when that loss happens, when something that fans weren't expecting, when something that they would call an upset happens against the 49ers, and you might see one of your stars, whether it's Kittle or Debo or McCaffrey or whoever, whenever you see one of them maybe with fewer touches than you wanted, people are going to come out of the woodwork for Kyle Shanahan. That's just the nature of how it happens. I mean, it's happened for George Kittle when he was one of the only, stars on the offense. It's going to happen now when there's all these guys here. So to your point, I can certainly see that happening. And I can maybe hear people listening to this episode saying, that's not really a challenge. I mean, it's a great problem to have, but it's a problem for Kyle Shanahan because, as you mentioned, he wants to keep everyone happy and he doesn't want people upset at him, which you can already see the path for that to happen.
Yeah, and you alluded to it, but spoiler alert, people are going to be mad at Kyle Shanahan. Like
It's just
that
going to
is
happen.
well, it's happened throughout his first 6 seasons, or now 5+ in his 6th year. Like, it's going to happen. People are going to be angry at Kyle Shanahan. It's not going to happen after wins. But it's going to happen eventually when they
Hey,
lose.
I mean, I could see it say,
I could
they've
see it
got
this weekend. If they lose to the Chargers, you're going to be like, hey, you got all these guys back off of injury. You got all these different offensive options. You're getting maybe a couple guys back on defense against a very banged up Chargers team. And if you happen to lose that game come Monday morning after a national TV potential loss, people are going to be coming down Kyle Shanahan's road because that's the guy. Like, that is right now the guy in the crosshairs. And he kind of always has been, but I think even more so this season than others.
Well, I mean, I was going to say, I think it could even happen in a win. Say this team hosts Arizona. Let's see, that their home game against Arizona is actually the final game of the regular season, week 18. Say the Niners win that game and it gets them the NFC West and they're the third seed. And if you win the NFC West, you should at the very worst be the third seed, possible up to the 2 seed. The 4 seed is still possible as well, but the NFC South champ is likely going to be that 4 seed. Let's just say the Niners eke out a win against the Cardinals. They win week 18. They win the NFC West. All, great. Fantastic news for the 49ers. No, there will be Niner fans who would want a 14-point win against the Cardinals, and the Niners only won by 3 at home in a game they had to have against the lowly Arizona Cardinals, who had been eliminated from the playoffs weeks ago. They got nothing to play for. You only come out and you win by 3. Kyle Shanahan, you gave Debo the ball only 5 times. How is that possible? This is not only a thing that could happen in losses, it's a thing that could happen in wins in which the team didn't perform as well as maybe they should have or you thought they might. So I'm with you that this is certainly something that Kyle Shanahan will have to work at because he hasn't ever been in a position like this where he's had so many guys to choose from on the offensive side of the ball. And there will be games, 100%, where Christian McCaffrey does not get the touches he deserves, where George Kittle is overlooked because there's just so much else to look at for Jimmy Garoppolo and for the 49ers offense. Brandon Ayuk's receiving numbers will probably take a dip in the second half of the season. It is bound to happen because that's what happens when you have all these stars on offense.
Yeah. And again, it's a great problem to have. And I think, health aside, the 49ers are back to being in consideration for a team with the best roster in football. I mean, the Philadelphia Eagles, I think, have probably proven that they have it thus far. The 49ers, to me, are the only area where they might be lacking at this point, primarily due to injury, would just be in the trenches. Offensive and defensive line at this point. But if they get an Eric Armstead back, that totally changes the equation. If Trent Williams can stay healthy the rest of this season, he alleviates so much pressure up front for the 49ers. And now it's just about rolling the ball out there and playing. Like I'm looking forward to seeing what this offense from it's so wild where we started this season, obviously with Trey Lance, but even then in week 2, where the offense started with Jimmy Garoppolo taking over, and then of course week 3, the freaking debacle in
Oh
Denver,
my goodness.
to go from that to potentially one of the most dynamic, creative, widespread, bountiful offenses in football. Like the 2022 49ers have a story arc that I don't really think you can, at least off the top of my head, think of many other teams that have undergone something like that. And Mark, there's a chance they could add even another player.
Yeah, I mean, there's a big name out there on the free agent market. I don't know.